start us off with DevNet updates. How's Glamsterdam DevNet 5 going? What are things looking like?
Sure. So DevNet 5 is going quite poorly today. It went nicely yesterday. There was apparently a peering bug in Prism, and Grandin also had a fork choice bug. The fork choice bug was triggered by a malicious Lodestar client that Nico has built yesterday or day before that. As far as I know, the Grandin bug is still not fixed, and the Prism bug might be fixed. It's untested as of now. POTUS just pushed a new commit, and I'm building a new image. Should be rolling out in probably half an hour from now. Once the Prism bug is fixed, we should be getting back to finalization, and other than that, I think most of the other clients were quite stable.
POTUS, do you want to expand on why you guys were sending invalid PTC attestations, or like what triggers it?
This was a great find by Eitan, and was corroborated by Nico and his bot. So the issue is quite nice because we need to have a discussion anyways as to what to do with this. So the issue is that PTC attestation should be sent even for if it's not on your branch. Like if you're a PTC attester, the block that comes is not your head, but the payload that you see for that block is timely, you should attest to that payload. Or if it's not timely, you should attest that it wasn't timely. The problem is that we were determining our duties with our head state as any other duty for the validator. So the head state is telling us, you are in the PTC committee. You need to send a PTC attestation. And then we call the beacon to get a PTC attestation. And the beacon says, well, for this slot, I have seen this block with a timely payload, but this block is on a different shuffling. And in that branch, we were not in the PTC committee. So the validator was asking for duties on one shuffling. It was sending an attestation for a different shuffling, which we weren't in the committee. And then everyone, including ourselves, we're not validating that PTC attestation. We don't check things that we broadcast ourselves. We could have saved it by checking, but I think it's just better not to do this. Anyways, what we should be moving into is into trying to send PTC attestation for different branches on different shuffling, even if it's not our head shuffling. It's just that we need to check that that we are in the committee in that shuffling. The fix that I sent now is the lazy fix. If we see a block for the current slot, but we're not in the shuffling, then we don't even check if we need to send a PTC attestation. We just don't send anything.
Okay, nice. So this was already happening, and this then triggered the peering bug, or what was the?
Well, this can only happen when you have a non-finalized situation and very long forks. So we already had these very long forks because of fork choice issues on attesters on different side, and then on top of that, as soon as this starts happening, then we get isolated, and now every single node of Prism is on a different fork.
It means that you saw PTC votes coming from other clients correctly voting for the forks, or you were the only one attempting to do that and doing it wrongly?
I think we are the only ones that are doing this wrongly. Oh, Eitan found some Nimbus blocks, but even with the same dependent root, Eitan found some Nimbus blocks that were attested incorrect.
Yes, so I previously did some analysis of clients, and it looks like every client just uses canonical head or the canonical branch. So they will not even cast PTC attestations for that branch that you attested to. Because I think it was the Grandin branch, right?
Yeah, I believe that should just consider the canonical.
Well, the problem is that if we are eventually in a situation in which we're not finalizing and we have several branches, then if we only send for the canonical branch, we will never achieve quorum on anything. As soon as there's two branches, then proposers are going to be free to reorg every payload on every branch.
Yeah,
So this, I think, is a serious liveness risk if we don't. I think we should do an honest attempt to send every attestation, even if it's not on our branch.
yeah, I believe any low participation branch can easily have nothing on no PTC, so it will be killed.
Yeah, that won't be a problem. The problem is if we have a split. If we have a split,
I mean,
then and then this is kind of easy to do for a powerful agent. Create a split for little time, and then we have this proposer boost to try to prevent it. But then, even without proposer boost, if we have no PTC on either side, you can just maintain the branches without any payload.
Yeah, so the one thing you mentioned, if we want to do PTC duties per branch, I think this is really difficult. I think we never did this where like you do duties on a non-canonical branch, because we always have the head reorg and then we track the dependent route, right? So we never did this before.
Yeah, I think I briefly looked yesterday to try to implement it as a fix for this, and I figured now this is going to be a nightmare. So I just sent the lazy one. I'll study if it's too difficult to do, but it's something to keep in mind.
Yeah, there was one idea. So the problem, right, is that we have this absolute number on the PTC where you need to cross the 256 threshold, right?
Yeah, but if you want to do it relative to the number of voters, that's even worse. We considered this early on, but that doesn't work even worse.
Also, there's another idea which came in proposed yesterday when we had some random discussion, which is you basically use your local view. So if you saw the payload timely and available, you will always vote for that or pick that and not listen to the PTC. So you don't need the threshold. And only if the PTC has a majority against that payload, then you will change your view. So you don't rely on this, or you don't have this problem, right?
I think this fails. It's too early for me to check, but I think so. We decided not to have attesters making the decision on the payload, but the proposer, and then the attesters following the proposer, because otherwise, I think this would fail the security for the. This would allow like late builders, for example, to collude and try to do an ex-ante reorg. I mean, if you're going to vote for full because of your view, then you're not going to permit. It's going to make it harder for the next proposer to reorg a payload when he should have reorged the payload. And I think you just make ex-ante reorgs easier this way by a collusion between the builders. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if you have the safeguard when you have the majority of the PTC saying it was not timely, that you would trust the PTC.
Yeah, but the problem with this is that if you hold, like, say, 2% and you create a split for 49% of the PTC saying something, then you can prevent always the majority of the PTC to achieve anything with only 50%, with only 2% of your stake.
So is that the issue you also described, or there was like an issue you opened, I think?
Yeah. So it's similar to that.
Okay, yeah, I think I haven't thought enough about that to give you an answer on that.
So is this a general problem of small committees? So whenever we decide to address anything in the chain with small committees, we end up in this possible situation, correct?
I mean, it's the general problem is that we need to deal with a situation in which a malicious actor can create an arbitrary split. But we are under the assumption that these smaller committees are chosen in a uniform manner randomly from the whole committee. So we are under the assumption that whatever split this malicious actor creates is the same split on the attester side and on the PTC side. So the issue that I raised, I think it wasn't so dangerous because it would create a different split on the PTC, which is a small committee, and the large committee. But I think for what Nico is describing, this is not necessarily the case.
But also, don't we have this already? So if the tester didn't see the payload timely, but the PTC majority says it's timely, we'll go with the PTC, right?
Yes, correct.
So, and why does this not suffer the same issue as the other way around?
Well, because you follow the proposer. So what the attesters do is they follow the proposer. They don't follow whatever the PTC says. They follow the proposer, and the PTC is there just to allow the proposer to be able to decide on reorging.
Yeah, but with the current spec, the proposer also follows the PTC, right?
Not really. So the proposer follows the PTC only in the case where there's when there's a majority that says it wasn't timely.
Oh, exactly. But that's the case I want to have as attesters as well, basically.
Yeah, and I claim that making the attesters make the decision instead of the proposer comes with a bunch of ex-ante reorgs that become easier. Then this was a reason why Francesco was against having this just in for choice. We could have just put this in should extend payload, and that would force attesters instead of like this new should build on full. And the reason was because we don't want attesters to make the decision. It also has some liveness issues too.
Okay, so the fix will be launched on the DevNet soonish, or what's the plan
It should
forward
be
now?
already building, but I'm not sure if
Okay.
I'm not sure if we're going to be able to catch up to head though. If we catch up to head, it should be fine.
Oh, nice. Wait, why wouldn't it
It's-
catch up to head?
Well,
It's rolling now. We have
everyone
some
was
syncing
having
issues.
trouble
Yeah.
everyone was having trouble sending range payloads and range blocks. So
Yeah.
then we start downscoring everyone again.
By the way, did you double check that is not your bug and is actually clients sending
No,
stuff?
I haven't. So so we do have one bug in which so I'm sure clients are sending something incorrect because we do log. There is an inconsistent payload and block. So this one we're sure that some clients are sending inconsistent payload and blocks. But the problem is that we were downscoring the wrong peer.
Okay.
Okay, so plan A is gonna be recovering DevNet 5. Let's hope that works out. Nico, do you maybe want to briefly talk about Death Star and what it's doing, and maybe what types of bugs we should be focusing on?
So the current behavior is really simple. So it just builds on empty, basically. So even if the payload is timely, it just tries to build on empty. And then ideally what should happen is that block should always be orphaned. But there were some cases where Grandine and Nimbus together still voted for the block. And then I think POTUS, we concluded that there was like a threshold, and then if the Death Star block gets proposer boost, it like barely crosses the threshold to become head. I think that was the observation because we had also like roughly 20% of attesters voting for it wrongly. So that's basically what it does right now.
Nice, very cool. So once the fork chest bugs are fixed, technically everyone should be able to handle this.
Yeah, DevStar block should never be part of the canonical chain.
Makes sense.
During my testing, I also had my own Evil Teku building late beacon blocks and publishing late payload. I was thinking if this could be, I can provide an image with the additional parameters to maybe include this in the network if we want to do additional tests to test fork choice.
Yeah, that would be nice. Thank you. Cool. Okay, next item. Is it worth discussing DevNet 6 plans, or should we just for now focus on DevNet 5? We take it on ACDT on Monday. Okay, I'll take it as focus on DevNet 5 for now. Let's move on to Glamsterdam. The first topic on the agenda is from James. Do you want to introduce it? GLOA's proposer preference EIPs?
Sure. Well, this is the GLOS proposer preference APIs PR for the Beacon API. So this PR introduces the two endpoints, the post and the get for proposer preferences. It also adds the server-side event for proposer preferences, and it deprecates the prepare beacon proposer and register validator endpoints. One caveat is with the deprecation of the prepare beacon proposer endpoint, I added to the description of beacon committee subscriptions that that endpoint will be used to track uh, what local validators are connected to that particular beacon node. Right now, Prism is using prepare beacon proposers endpoint to do that tracking, but this is recommending we switch to the beacon committee subscriptions endpoint after this change. So I just wanted to raise this. If there's any more concerns, I think all the comments were addressed. So just wanted to move that along.
Nice. Are there any objections to this change? Okay, cool. Then I'll leave it to the maintainers to merge it in. The next one we have is from, I want to say Cayman. Yeah, it's from Cayman about mandatory quick as primary transport. Is Cayman here? Or can someone speak on its behalf?
Yeah, so feels like quick is kind of the default in many clients today, even though we specify the standard transport. And so we're proposing to make quick the default with the fallback. So not really breaking change, but just a step towards quick as the default transport.
Okay, nice. Does someone from Lighthouse maybe briefly want to talk about that application of Amplex? I think they're doing it soon, right?
We're not deprecating Mplex. We're just putting it behind a flag. So you can still run with Mplex, but the default behavior will be quick.
Okay, got it. So yeah, I think it does make sense to have this in the consensus specs as well. I don't think Justin's gonna be on this call. Is there anyone opposing adding this to the specs?
I think the only thing for us in Techo is that we are just about to release support for Quick. It's still experimental. So ideally we wouldn't just like remove I think making Quick the default one when we negotiating the protocol is fine. Completely removing Mplex on TCP, it's going to be a bit harsh at the moment, for at least for the Techo nodes, because we are not enabling it by default for this release because we want some time to do some more testing. So we're probably going to have this release Quick supported but behind the feature flag, and the next release following the default, Quick first, and whatever else later.
Yeah, Matthew.
Yeah, Lucas, we were taking a look at that PR, and we do know that or that branch, and we do know that not everybody's ready for Quick. We've made it default on our client, but we know that not everybody has, and it's just an incremental step towards a world where Quick is the default and the only transport. But obviously, it's going to take some time in order to test and just make sure things are stable.
Yeah, making it the default is fine because with the protocol negotiation, if someone doesn't support it, it's just gonna fall back into TCP with Mplex. I think
Exactly.
the biggest risk for us, what we see is that pull request on Lighthouse that basically puts it behind the feature flag. So for most users, if suddenly they are not supporting TCP anymore with Mplex, and that might become a big issue.
So the reason we wanted to do this ahead of the hard fork is the upgrade rates for us on the last few minor version bumps we've put out have been slow despite there being vulnerabilities in those. And the time where we see the highest rate of upgrade is obviously at hard fork boundaries. So if we make this change at the same time as GLOASS, I feel like we're more likely to create a situation rather than we have slow upgrade rates at the moment. We do it now. We run our nodes with the Mplex flag on for a time to bridge the gap. We're less likely to destabilize things. That's the rationale. But
so when are you planning to release this? Like the actual
within by the end of the month, probably the next.
And do you reckon that's going to be your final GLOASS version?
That won't be our GLOASS version, no. But I'm saying we don't. If we make Quick default at the GLOASS version, we are more likely to have a large amount of users upgrading to that version all at once, as opposed to upgrading slowly over time, which is what happens now for our users.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just thinking, is there a reason why that can't go on the next version, for example? Does it have to be end of this month?
We have. So yeah, we can talk about that not in a public call, but yeah, I would prefer to not have it as the default in our next release, but yep.
Paul and then Sukun.
So why are you removing Mplex? You can just prioritize Quick dynasty.
Other way around. Sukun. So Paul would go first, and then
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Sorry.
I think it's a very similar question, actually. I'm the suggestion that I've had offline with Lighthouse and stuff has just been that it continues to be at least enabled, if not default, and that would be perfectly fine. The problem that we have at the moment is that it's not really implemented fully and tested. So, I mean, it's implemented in theory. We just need more time. So I've asked that we're able to have the month to get ours ready. And yeah, that's kind of my expectation at the moment. So that's what we're working on. But I think disabling it completely by default is a bit of a risk, and there will need to be a really, really big reason to do it, I think.
I mean, I'm not sure how much of a risk it is. We accidentally released a version with it disabled for about 2 months and nothing happened previously. So I'm not super concerned.
Well,
but
you are
I
a
hear you.
majority client on the network, so it does severely impact on peering, that's all.
Yeah, so Sukun and then Potus.
I mean, I have the same question. There is no reason to disable MPlex, right? We can prioritize quick dials whenever the peer supports quick.
Yeah, Potus?
I empathize with what Lighthouse is saying, assuming that there's some actual reason that, well, anyways, let's probably move on. But you should weigh in the potential bugs that you may have against the situation that you will cause, forcing Teku nodes to reach out to non-Lighthouse nodes. And then that means that a big parcel of those non-Lighthouse nodes, whatever other clients are going to be having to serve Teku nodes, therefore taking less peers from Lighthouse itself. That would isolate Lighthouse more. So if we create a bunch of clusters in which all of Lighthouse nodes are self-peered because they are losing Prism nodes now that do support Quick, but Prism is now taking, like, instead of 20% of their peers being Teku, now they're going to be 50% because, well, those Teku nodes cannot reach out to Lighthouse. So this is self-reinforcing. It is a danger in itself.
Yeah, for sure. Look, if there is an overwhelming consensus that we should not do this and give some more time, we can do that. We're not trying to hardline anyone or do anything crazy here. We've just been pushing this for quite a long time, and it continues to be a surface of something that we have to continue to maintain in the current environment. Is taking resources away, and we feel like we should be pushing to move to quick. So, but if Teku can get there in the next few weeks, we can hold off. That's fine. It's not the end of the world.
Lucas and Matthew.
I was just looking at the pull request. Because there's a pull request on mandating quick as a primary transport. So are we gonna sorry. So the idea is to make quick the primary one and TCP completely optional, or a mandatory fallback? Because I think, like, looking at the wording throughout
It's specified as should and not as a must right now. So it's like, I guess, a strong recommendation. But
Okay.
if other people have other opinions about that, happy to change it.
Matthew?
For what it's worth, I definitely support POTUS's opinion that it causes instability in the network. We do sympathize with your situation, Kingy. We're aware of it. But we do feel the correct stance is quick should be default, but there should be a fallback. And then the next step would be to remove the fallback at some point, once Nimbus also has quick handled and Teku stable.
Is there somewhere people will be able to chat with you on this, Kingy? Maybe something on the Steel server where all CLs can chime in one place?
Yeah, it's okay. I think that I think everyone's kind of reading between the lines. I think we can, if that is the consensus, we can go that way. That's fine. We can have quick as default and have Mplex as a fallback. I would strongly, really, really beg that we get this done soon, because we continue to have to maintain a surface that we would not like to. So can we just commit to doing this before before GLOASS 2, so we don't all have this big change all at once. That would be great.
Is there anybody from Nimbus on the call that can speak to where their quick implementation is?
They posted in Discord a few days ago that they have the quick implementation, but it's not enabled by default, and that they will be enabling that soon.
Okay, so it
Yeah.
seems like we're pretty close anyway.
Yeah, Lucas.
I was just gonna say something close to what Barnabas just posted. I think I do sympathize with this, that wanting to remove this extra surface that you don't want to use and everything. So my suggestion would be we can have even the draft pull request for the consensus to basically completely remove support to it as part of the spec, and then just have it scheduled and for sometime in the future.
Yeah, Barnabas mentions shortly after GLOASS. It's not a bad idea at all.
But I think if we
I
do
do.
after GLOASS, we miss that update kind of nudge
Yeah.
that Lighthouse wants, right?
That's true.
Yes, exactly.
That's true.
I'd like to do it.
Maybe it's better to do
I
it
mean,
before.
GLOASS minus
Yeah.
2 months, I think would be preferable, you know.
Yeah, maybe when we're doing testnet releases is a decent time. I do like the
Yeah,
idea of
it
not
really
batching
depends
it
on
along with GLOASS, because that is, yeah. I don't want to increase the surface area for things to go wrong with Amsterdam.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, are we testing quick now on the devnets? Have like all the clients added quick support as default, for example, Teku on their feature branch for Amsterdam DevNet 5? Or it's on a complete orthogonal line?
We have support merged in our master branch. I think we might need to backport it to the DevNet branch.
Yeah, can you please do that? And then
Yep.
we can check who else is missing. I think at that point it's only gonna be Nimbus.
And we also have that pull request on Cortosis to be able to set up. But anyway, we can talk about it later.
Okay. Thank you guys for that. Leo from Mega Labs has a topic he proposed. It's a Beacon API change to talk about validator states. You have the floor, Leo.
Yep. Can you hear me well?
Yes.
Yep. Yeah, so this is just a minor change on the Beacon API. It's related to validators and deposits. The thing is, 6 years ago when we were working on phase 0, we defined 2 states for deposits, which were pending, initialized, and pending queued. That basically at the time were defining exactly where your validator was in the workflow of being activated. Now, since Spectra, we have significant changes. So we had multiple EIPs that changed things significantly. In particular, EIP 6110 and EIP 7251, and we changed the queue is not in the process registry updates anymore, which is where you were getting the pending queue status. But now the real queue, the churn rate, is moving. It has been moved to the state pending deposits, which happens much earlier in the workflow. So basically, what we want is just to rename these 2 states so that they accurately, reflect where the validator is in the workflow being activated. Because when you are right now getting the pending queue, you are not in a queue anymore. Actually, you are just waiting the look ahead +1 epochs, and all of the validators that are eligible to be activated will be activated. So this is not anymore a queue in any possible way. So yeah, it's just about renaming this. I think it clarified things a lot, and it helps people that are building block explorers and indexers to reflect things more clearly. So the blog post is has been shared in the chat, and you also have the PR there, so you can take a look at it. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree. I think if such a change would need to be a version bump as well, so we don't break existing tooling. But yeah, it would be great if client teams can engage on the PR.
Yeah, absolutely. In the blog post, we mentioned 2 ways of doing this, and we do understand that this is a breaking change. So that's why we are asking the community to provide feedback. We could actually maintain, the old labels at the same time that we put new ones for a period of time and then later remove them, or we can just do a breaking change and go ahead with that. We will want to hear from the community what they think is the best way to move forward.
Sounds good. Thank you. Yeah, please engage on the PR. Continuing on the Beacon API topic, Barnabas had a proposal for extending the PR API. You have the floor, Barnabas.
Yeah, so this is basically a debugging endpoint that is mostly used for us to be able to visualize who is scoring down who, and by exposing the peer scoring values, we could actually build some nice dashboard, possibly in Dora or somewhere else, where we could visualize peer scoring behaviors. And to do this, I think the best would be to add some optional fields in the node peers Beacon API endpoint, where we set the peer scores that are derived from the different nodes. Curious what people think. The numbers itself don't really matter. We can standardize on the numbers on the consumer side. So like if we're scoring between 0 and 10 on Prism and between 0 and 1,000 on Teku, we can just standardize.
No, the number is fine. The number we always have. The reason might be more problematic for us to get.
Oh yeah, but the reason, the reason would be also just nice to have. I think the peer score itself alone would be a huge unlock. The reason would be just icing on the cake.
Okay. Yeah, I think people can. Oh, sorry, Paul, go ahead.
I'm happy with this one. I like it, but yeah, the disconnect reason is the main issue that I have. I don't think it would necessarily be able to be filled out, but assuming that that is not like the key thing that you're looking to get out of it, I think it'd be a good win.
Is the downscore reason could be easier to get than the disconnect reason?
I think so. I'd have to look at the implementation, but the actual score itself is fine because all of that's in the peer context, but I don't know about why it's being downscored, whether that's in the context. But anything we can get could go out as an optional field and should be.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, all of these would be optional, so it's a non-breaking change. I don't think we should introduce any breaking changes to this endpoint.
Yeah, and it might be even worth, I don't know how different clients handle all of this, but one of the things we do in the fork choice output is we have an extra data field where we can put extra fields that maybe might be relevant for, say, Prism, but not relevant for Teku. So we could do something like that if we needed to.
So I would like to get this PR merged in, and then we can bike shed the reasons later on in case that we find some new reasons that we could standardize on. It would be good. If we cannot get the reasons, I guess that's also fine. But I would really like if clients take a look and actually try to get the reason in as well.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, maybe make it the easiest version possible, and then maintainers can take care of the rest. The next section of ACDC is gonna be all builder related. First thing is builder execution requests. Nico and Cayman, you have the floor.
Cool. Okay, so yeah, we have this EIP 8282. Basically, we want to add a builder deposit contract and stop sharing the deposit contract between validators and builders. So yeah, we were looking into this. The existing contract lets through a lot of deposits, and there are ways of batching and caching these deposits to avoid a DOS, but we think this is a pretty big, complex testing surface that's kind of hidden right now. We looked into it yesterday. We saw a few attack surfaces, and Justin has a few more. And so the question is not like whether I think we could probably add caches to like avoid having to do a bunch of BLS verifications at once, but it's more like, should we? And so this is I think this is a pretty simple EIP that just routes around the problem at the design level or without basically prevents even the ability of having to deal with a lot of builder deposits at once. So the contracts themselves, they're pretty much, they're almost identical to the EIP 7002 and 7251 code. So there is a smart contract risk, right, with having to add a new contract, but I think that it's about as small as it can get when you actually look at the deltas between the smart contracts.
Does anyone want to speak up? Do people have immediate opinions?
So I'm not. I like the framing of this of avoiding. I agree, avoiding the caching as I've articulated this in the Discord as well. But however, I'm not, having read the EIP as it exists today, is not that clear to me where the sort of how this achieves those goals, I guess. So that maybe I missed that, or I'm not sure.
Right. Okay. So the contract is the deposit contract is pretty similar to like the consolidation contract. Basically, there's like a EIP 1559-ish like fee that's attached, and so there's a target and a max allowable operations to be passed in per block, and then those are fed via the execution requests bus from the EL to the CL. So it's capped on the EL side.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we also looked at it a bit within PandaOps, and I think Portos' framing is a perfect one there. It sounds like it's the right solution, but it's definitely going to delay the fork. This would need to be quite a lot of coordination also with the EL, especially if we're adding a new transaction type or system contract, new execution, whatever, and it'll add quite a bit more work there.
This is something that we thought about pretty deeply before we put this EIP forward, because we understood that that is a risk. And the thing that we came back to several times is that it's a lot of copy and paste, because it's just creating two lanes to facilitate the separation of concerns. And the amount of edge cases and complicated testing and attack surface and a lot of the other dynamism that it removes from the system for some copy and paste feels like it probably won't. We think probably won't cause a delay because it removes a lot of the edge case testing. And again, it's basically just replicating something we already have existing, both on the EL side and the CL side. and just makes a a separate lane to make sure that we're not conflating and creating hidden conditions.
Yeah, Nico?
Yeah, so yesterday I started this thread on EPBS channel where I linked some testing cases. And because we were thinking a bit, okay, what kind of different scenarios we need to test? Because right now we have this problem where you, in a lot of cases, need to check if a validator already exists or it's like in the pending queue and will become a valid validator. So you cannot front run deposits and you cannot have the same entity with the same pub key twice currently. And so with that, with the builder execution request, we would also separate that completely. So that's one main reason why you get rid of all these edge cases that exist currently, where we potentially need to implement caching and verify a lot of signatures. So I linked so Justin was testing this yesterday, and the list got like 9 scenarios right now. I think there's a 10th scenario even that we can test, and maybe even more. So I'm not yet sure that like the effort to like for all clients to pass these 10 scenarios that we will have is simpler than just fixing it the right way. So that's my main
Maybe
concern
a
right now.
meta question there. Separate deposit contract and or a different deposit type is something we investigated in the beginning for the EPBS design already, right? So why did we decide against it back then?
Does POTUS maybe notice? I don't know.
Same reason as now. It's the same trade-off, and back then we decided that not to take that trade-off.
Okay.
Yeah, but there are some test scenarios, for example, scenario 9, where like if clients don't properly cache signature verifications, you can indefinitely DOS the chain. And it's not even that expensive.
Is it possible that we add this again to the ACDT agenda on Monday? I don't want to take the call on this right now, especially not without Justin around as well. It would be nice to know how realistic a lot of these attacks are and give clients some time to quantify how long it would take to work on caching and things like that. Yeah, Portals?
Yeah, so I wanted to reply to what Dustin is asking about whether or not we should ignore these scenarios or not. No, we should not. But what I claim is that the attack should be costly enough as to have other attacks that are cheaper. And this is the way we work on everything. Like you can now buy a block and just make it empty by just bidding on it. You can argue, okay, fine. You might find a proposer that will not take your bid. Okay, you can just send transactions that are just pure garbage and fill the block and pay those transactions high enough. You're going to get your block to be empty and it's going to cost you money. And the same thing with all of these scenarios. They cost money. But what we need to do is to be able to all of our clients to sync those blocks. So that is something that you do need. It's not irrelevant. You do need to be able to sync those blocks, because otherwise, whenever the chain actually heals, your client is not going to be able to follow it. Eventually, you need to be able to sync those blocks in whatever allotted time you have.
Yeah, but especially like the scenario 9, for example, I mean, it's not that cheap, but you can spend like 10 million and then basically indefinitely kill liveness. And it doesn't cost you anything after that initial money. So, I mean, clients, so for that, you need some implementation on the client side.
Wasn't that scenario just sending one transaction? So you make a bunch of invalid validator deposits, and then you just send one transaction per block, right?
Yeah, exactly. And you send the
Yes, but the
invalid
problem
builder
with
deposit.
all of these things is that they also rely on the builder being stupid enough that it will not send it. You still need to survive censorship, which the builder themselves can do this.
Yeah, but so you're saying we rely on builders not submitting these?
No, we just rely on like one proposer not seeing those transactions or not including those transactions. And then the chain immediately syncs everything. So as long as blocks do not include those transactions that will make you like sync everything, you're fine. But also we should all, once that we should all cache the signatures that you've already verified that they are invalid. That's a very simple cache to have.
One concern I have about the emphasis on these side caches is that it makes there's one aspect of talking about the initial implementation and testing, yes, and that's real. But that is not a one-time thing. It's ongoing. It's extra complexity that's directly security attack surface related that is not, let's say, readily testable because the caches will not be sufficiently homogeneous across clients likely in let's say the consensus spec tests or similar testing. We are, I think, as an ecosystem, let's say, not optimally great at testing a lot of these edge cases that were in an automated way that have come up for various reasons. Some of them are just literally expensive to set up the dev nets to do this, etc. But the end result is I would be a little concerned about the correctness in an ongoing way of a system which depended on in an integral way on the existence of these caches, which is not actually true right now. Ethereum does not depend on the existence of any but almost no significantly long-lived caches. Some clients have them, yes, but I can say it is not necessary, and this would make it necessary, and that's a qualitative change regarding which is dubious.
I also think the hopium that external builder is going to do the right thing in all situations when we're worried about nation state attacks is really who would be doing this. That feels not great.
I think I also agree. It sounds like the right solution to go down. The question is if it's the right solution to go down right now. We are in June. The fork was supposed to happen late this year. I don't think adding this would imply the fork happens this year. Saying the quiet part out loud. Is this that critical a topic that it's worth delaying the fork by months is the core question. I feel like I don't want to make that decision today. I'd suggest maybe client teams engaging a bit with this, having some estimates of how much more work getting the cache right would be, as well as having Justin on the call to quantify how bad the attacks are would be useful data points for that decision. Would everyone feel okay revisiting this again on Monday at ACDC? Okay, thank you. And thank you guys for working on the PR. I think this is super valuable conversation. Continuing on the topic of builders or builder related, Bharat, do you want to introduce the staked builder API?
Yeah, I wanted to raise it mainly that I wanted that PR has been open for a long time, and I think I think at least like one dev for each client team has like seen and reviewed it. So I'm pretty happy in that. And what I want to like propose like after this call, like I'm going to merge that PR, and as clients like implement, I'm sure we'll get more information and like maybe like issues there and we can like iterate on it. But that PR has been open for a while, and I think I don't know if Terence is already like started working on it, but it's just useful to like merge it and iterate on it later. So that's like one point I want to discuss. Any issues or anything, happy to hear. Cool. Cool, I think with
Awesome.
Barnabas's approval, I'll
You
like,
have, I think. Sorry, go ahead.
no, I mean like with Barnabas's approval, I'll like merge that. Yeah, so Pai, the next thing you put this is more of an issue like I just wanted to like raise on the surface. I don't expect to make a decision on this. Like as clients implement, probably we can discuss this again. So we have like the submit beacon block API in the builder API. What that basically that does is like in GLOAS, the builder API is basically like you call the builder, get an execution payload bid. Let's say you like it, put it in your block, and you send it back to the builder via the submit beacon block API. You send the beacon block, and using that, they build the envelope and publish it. So the problem is that with this API is I was implementing this on Prism like a prototype, and I saw that the API does have a chance of making the beacon node a little bit more stateful in the sense that, so if you look at the flow, a validator client queries the beacon node for a block. The validator client gets back a block. It signs the block, sends it to the beacon node to publish it. Today, like pre-gloss, like at the step when the beacon node receives a signed block, it's able to check, okay, is this a blinded block? If this is a blinded block, you call the get payload on the relays. Otherwise, like, you don't have to do that. But today, like when you get the signed block back, you just have an execution payload bit. You know whether that's self-built or it's from a builder. But even if it's from an external builder, you don't know if that is like a P2P bid or a builder API bid. Like you don't have it in the bid. So likely a beacon node will have to maintain some sort of mapping where, okay, this execution payload bid mapped to like this type builder URL or this like thing. And you'll have to probably maintain that state because you also want to send the block back to the builder from whom they got the bid because only they have the payload to broadcast. So a beacon node will likely have to maintain some mapping, and then like a validator client, like a stateless validator client probably like will be a little like, you can't send the block back to any other beacon node. So yeah, that's like mainly the thing. So basically that PR is about, okay, should we have that API or not? If you don't have that API, we just broadcast the block regardless, and the builder, even if that's like a builder API, builder will have to listen on the gossip and like reveal the payload accordingly. And we don't have this API basically. But there could be some value in giving the block back to the builder because the builder can help broadcast the block. Like there's a common example always is a validator node in Australia. Like, the builder helps them like disseminate the block better on the network. But then you could also make the case that the block size is much smaller, right? So maybe it's not that big of a problem. So that's basically what that API is about. I expect as clients implement more, they will have more feedback on this. But if anyone has any anything now, like happy to listen.
Yeah, I think this might just be a topic we'd have to delay because we haven't, I don't think clients have spent that much time on the build API yet.
Yeah, no, I agree. Anyways, I just wanted to like raise this as a potential like issue, so we keep that in mind. The last thing I think is also similar. Like, so today in the builder specs, in the Bellatrix specs, we specify like a circuit breaker in that. That is, we basically mention that if a circuit breaker is fired, proposers must fall back to self-building, and the heuristics for the circuit breaker are completely client dependent, implementation dependent. I just wanted to, before like merging, wanted to get a sense whether we should specify if there's any value specifying a circuit breaker in like a logic in the consensus spec or in the builder spec or like stuff like that. Just like any opinions or any thoughts on that. Right. Or do we, because there have been discussions in interop where we discuss like more like layered circuit breaker approaches, like where we fall back from P2P to trusted, then to self-building, or we can just fall back to self-building. From a spec perspective, like, is this something we wanted a consensus spec, or do we want to have this in the builder spec? Any thoughts on that? I was curious.
Yeah, Paul?
We're not going to have time for a lot of fallbacks. Like it's going to be pretty much an either or scenario given the amount of time that we have, right? So I think falling back to local is probably fine, and it doesn't probably need to be specified in the consensus spec. Like client implementations not being the same is actually a strength.
Okay, that's a good point. Yeah. I'll keep that.
Okay, Bharat had another point about circuit breaker, but I propose we skip that for now in favor for Higota topics or remainder Glamsterdam discussions, if that's fine. Okay, last call for anything else Glamsterdam related. Does someone want to bring up anything today? Yeah, Barnabas?
Yeah, just one small thing. So in the previous weeks, we've been discussing the engine SSD topic, and we determined that this would be the proper way to do it. So it would be nice if the CL teams would actually start looking into adding support for this. I think Geth will have an implementation very soon. It should be a low-hanging fruit for the CL teams.
Okay, has any CL team already implemented this? I think you would just need one CL and one EL for you to start testing this, right? Nethermind says they have it.
Oh, Nethermind has a new version?
I'm not sure if I'll see it.
Yeah, we have a APR ready to be merged, but we not sure. We're not sure should we merge it or not. Is it specifications that is like stable one provided by Marius? We are talking about that, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, there are a couple of unanswered questions there, and it would be good to have some answers, and then we already ready to merge it. Yeah. Yeah, we had to Barnabas version, but then we also have a adjustment PR that changes it to Mario's one. Not sure. Actually, I liked Barnabas version a bit more. Not sure why we need Mario's version.
Okay. Any other Glamsterdam topic? Cool. Then let's move on to Higota. The first item on the agenda is EIP 8243 from Raul. I think he has a presentation. The floor is yours, Raul.
Yeah, perfect. Hey, so 8243 is currently called batching attestations at source. We're thinking about, I'm thinking about calling this, retitling this EIP to pre-aggregating at source. I think it is more accurate, but I'm curious about what ACDC thinks. I have not really a presentation as such, but I have some support material that I'm gonna show. Just give me a sec. I'm putting together an explainer microsite with a simulation with some stats that have been collected from Beacon Chain and so the platform and the API Beacon Chain and a bunch of other places as well, and from the network. So bear with me. I hope to be able to publish it this week. But yeah, so basically 8243 is about patching attestations at source. So as we know, the current network is, so currently where every attester is sending a message on the network to attest. And the reason for this is because otherwise, if we were to allow sending aggregates and having aggregates circulate on the network, this could be a spam or amplification vector where malicious actors could potentially bundle any attestations that they see on the wire and form new aggregates and spam the network with those. So the simple solution is at the network level, we only allow single attestations. Now, the reality of the network is that we have aggregates of validators. We have operators in the network of different types that are together owning or kind of like sharing a pool of validators, but most importantly, all of those validators are usually sitting behind a single beacon chain view. So technically, they're attesting at once. They're attesting like one entity, right? Because they have kind of like this one source of truth. So the gist of this proposal is we found a way to make it so that we could allow these operators to collect the attestations of the validators that are co-scheduled on the same committee, on the same slot, same point in time, and just send a single pre-aggregated message on the wire. Currently, with the stats that I've collected from Beacon Chain, this is the current distribution of the top 10 largest entities by the share validator set. These further decompose into sub-entities. So there's some give and take in when calculating what the consolidation factor could be. And this is precisely the simulation that I'm preparing because I think it's going to be useful for us to evaluate this together. But we are with this, if every entity pre-aggregated at source, with this proposal, we could potentially see a reduction factor of 2x on the wire. And I'll go into what that could potentially translate into. So just to kind of like give an overview of where the network is sitting today, we have 890,000 validators as of this morning. And that means that we have around 27,000 or 28,000 attestations per slot. And that means that decomposes over 64 subnets into 435 attestations per slot. If we sum all of this together, the unique data that circulates on the network for every slot is around 6.3 megabytes. I need to double check on the compression factors and so on here. But basically, this is what, if we were to have 100% participation in a given slot, then this is all of the unique data that we're collecting. Sukun presented some of the proposals that from the networking team we had been developing around better wire efficiency for this. There's some normalization that can be done. There's a lot that we can already squeeze out of this, and this proposal adds onto what we can squeeze. So just to kind of like give you a broad stroke, this goes into a lot of detail. So I'm just gonna go. I'm just gonna kind of like voice over some of the key elements of this proposal. The whole idea, or like the main notion, is that there is within. So say for example, you've got a operator that has, for example, 20 validators that are scheduled on the same committee on the same slot. Those 20 validators could together just emit a single pre-aggregated attestation. And the way they do that is by selecting one validator from those that is going to act as a batcher. And this selection can be done ahead of time, and it can be orchestrated by the beacon client as soon as the validator schedule is known. Every validator will then create what we are calling in this proposal a batch seal, and it's basically a signature authorizing that batcher to include their attestation in the batch or the pre-aggregate. So this is kind of like a commitment of saying, hey, or more of a consent for a validator to say, hey, this other validator that is a peer of mine in this set is authorized to send an aggregate that includes me. And then when the slot arrives, the validators are going to emit their single attestations, and they're going to collect them internally within the beacon client is going to collect them. It's going to form the aggregate, and then it's going to send that aggregate to the batcher for it to sign over the entire batch. The data structures look like this. There is no SDF involvement here. There is no changes to SDF. There is no changes to slashing. There's no change to on-chain data structures. What you're seeing here is just network data structures. What lands on chain is just the attestation as we know it today. So just to kind of like represent this on the wire, we've got the single attestation and we have the batch attestation. The batch attestation is the pre-aggregate, and it contains everything the single attestation does, plus these three fields. So it identifies the batcher by validator index within the committee. So this is the member of the committee, of course. It then includes the BLS aggregate of all the seals. So this is basically the aggregate that confirms that this batcher is authorized by all of the validators that are participating in this batch to send a batch on their behalf. And then it includes its own signature on top of this, sealing over the entire batch. That's basically it. What you see on the left are just pre-images. These are not, this is not data that circulates on the wire. It's just a pre-image that goes on the, that goes into the signing function. The validator rules are actually very simple. This is a little bit more, presents them a little bit more complex because it kind of like unbundles the existing validator rules. But basically what happens is it hinges on a few principles. First, every validator can participate individually and as a batcher only once as each role. So that means that if we have 435 attestations in a particular committee, then the maximum, if everybody happened to be a malicious validator and everybody emitted, and there was like the worst case scenario where a single operator owns all of the validators in a committee, if that materializes and they act maliciously, the max we could see is 870 attestations. So because every validator can participate individually by sending its single attestation, but also can participate in a batch. Now, this means that spam is completely capped. And this is a really good thing to have. The other alternative solutions that were even stricter and more aggressive in capping potential spam, had us introducing slashing conditions and so on. So I think this is a really good trade-off space to be. And so that is kind of like one of the key validation rules. The second validation rule is that a attestation bit can only, you will drop attestation circulating on the wire if you've already seen that attestation bit included in the previous attestation. So this is a simple mechanism to prevent beacon clients from having to track the strength of each attestation. And this is necessary. This is possible because the simplification is possible because of this batch seal authorization. So if we were to remove the batch seal mechanism, which is something we considered, then you could potentially have a malicious actor that is taking two aggregates and forming a super aggregate. And at that point, the beacon chain, the beacon client would need to identify which is the stronger one, and it becomes more the validation function becomes more complex. This is actually an open point. I do want to delve into this a little bit more. I think it merits a little bit more consideration before we completely discard it. But yeah, those are the main validation rules that we need to introduce, in addition to the existing ones that are more structural. What else? Yeah. So what opportunities does this unlock? So of course, it increases information efficiency for attestations. So with the same amount of traffic, or with half of the amount of traffic, we can represent exactly the same information. And this compounds over the rest of the optimizations that we've been proposing as well. So altogether, it puts us in a really nice place to make attestation, the whole attestation process, super lightweight on the network as a whole, which also means that potentially, because we're hearing from more validators at every point in time, once we could reduce with less traffic, we could, if we were to keep the traffic constant, we could actually reduce the number of subnets. And that would mean that potentially what falls out of this is that epochs could be shorter automatically by this. Now, this is a trade-off that I'm not sure. Like, we're definitely not gonna like make any topology changes as part of the CIP, but it is a door that opens up. I do think that MaxEB consolidation continues being really important, because while this gives us an optimization on the wire and gives us more headroom, and it allows us to like use that traffic, that practical traffic, for other things and to speed up things, it does not give us a theoretical bound, right? Because it's dependent on the network, on the validator to operator distribution at every point in time in the network. Even though one of the benefits of this is that the mechanism does not require any validator action, any explicit action like consolidation does, we're actually seeing the rate of consolidations like continue pretty healthily. So I do expect consolidations are going to continue in the next months, but this mechanism adds to that. I think that there will be a tail that consolidations will not get to, and also like there is a natural cap to consolidations as well because of balance. So we will end up at one point in time having validators, even consolidated validators, co-scheduled on the same committee. So this would be additive to that. And then a very interesting angle that opens up is the attester privacy, or kind of like from the perspective of K, like in the space of K anonymity set. And there is
Rahul, would you be able to
Yeah.
wrap up in maybe another minute or two? Because then we'd like to do Q&A with this.
Oh yeah, sorry, I wasn't looking at the chat. Yeah. So it is interesting because we thought, like, I personally thought that it hurt validator privacy at the beginning. But really, I think there's a chance that it actually benefits it, because we're creating a standard primitive by which any validator can decide to delegate their network broadcast to any other validator that's participating in the same committee, which can happen within an operator, but it can happen cross-operator, or it can even become a service in the network that actors provide to validators, kind of like a k-anonymity set style privacy solution. So I think it does open up that angle from the perspective of like weakening validator privacy, which is kind of like my starting point when I considered this. I think this does not add to the current situation in terms of, you know, what the vectors are. It does not make it worse. So yeah, I think I'm gonna stop there. I see there's a bunch of questions. Sorry, this was a little bit unstructured. I was trying to put together the site and the deck at the same time and just didn't have time. But there will be a microsite that is a lot more eloquent than what I'm presenting here in the next days.
Thank you so much. Open floor for questions. Does someone want to go first? Maybe one comment was about some missing data sets. So Lido and Ripple wouldn't be able to do this. Is this true? Yeah, POTUS.
Yeah, I had a naive question. What are the chances of a large operator? I mean, I assume that this is going to be larger with large operators. The impact would be larger with large operators. And what are the chances of a large operators having aggregators already? So that they can just pick one of their aggregators and just aggregate natively with the current status instead of going through all of these changes.
I would assume that it's like I've never heard of it from any professional operator, even though they are trying to optimize as hard as they can, but I've never heard of the attestation aggregators or like something like that being installed.
No, what I mean is we already have this code and we already have aggregators that are being chosen randomly. The question is, I'd like to see the numbers of what are the chances if you run a large enough operator that one of your attesters happens to be an aggregator. Therefore, we can just modify existing clients to aggregate on the source using the aggregator.
Oh yeah, that's a fair concern.
You mean in terms of logic and code reuse?
Yeah, it meant of like if let's say that we had instead of like 16 aggregators, we had thousands of aggregators. And then since there aren't that many large nodes, then you would expect that a bunch of those large nodes would have an aggregator among their validators. Therefore, they could just do the aggregation without any changes to the spec and without any new structure, without the changes on the validator client to sign the batches and so forth.
Right. So I think we can run the numbers on what the overlap could potentially be there. Like what is the starting point? Because with 16 aggregators per subnet, we could like then run the numbers to understand what the probability that any of those aggregators could fall on any of the operators today. And then from there, we could also like assess the trade-offs of increasing that number, which is what I think, or opening up, or kind of like giving freedom for anybody to be an aggregator. The problem with this is that it is aggregations would become a spam vector, right? So that's that's the main issue. The problem with this is the fragmentation at the network level, because it's really hard to create a validation rule. So say, for example, you have in a committee of 435, you allow like half of them to be validators, or like for simplicity, imagine you allow, sorry, aggregators. Imagine you allow all of them to be aggregators. The problem there becomes that you might see 435 different permutations, right? Of the aggregation bits. And yeah, that ends up being a potential spam vector. Yeah, we can consider it though. Just thinking out loud, really. Paul, I see you have a hand. Do you want to go next?
Yeah, I was just thinking one of the concerns that I have with this is it's really only aggregating across one channel. We already have aggregations across 64 channels, which would mean that there's a lot more benefit to that for each node, because unless you're running literally thousands of validators, you're not going to have a large number in per channel. So I think something like the existing aggregation kind of solution is probably more effective and potentially less expensive. The the concept of having to do another round trip to a validator to sign this package does give me pause because it is a time critical path. So I'm not sure that this is a solution that I'm fully on board with at the moment, but it might be in the right direction, but I don't know what the right direction, like I don't know what the endpoint would look like to be something that everyone would be happy with. But that was just my initial feedback on it.
Yeah, from the perspective of risk and like architecture, impact, opening up from our perspective, opening up the aggregator like cardinality, I guess, to like some other number that allows that overlap to naturally merge within those operators that have co-schedule validators. I think like it's gonna become really tricky to find a good number there. B, if anything, it would need to be from like this is just gut feeling, would need to be like completely free. So any attester is allowed to be to opt in to be an aggregator with some lower bound, of course, with some compulsory aggregation happening. The thing is that, yeah, we need to look at kind of like the slashing. The slashing side of things, and yeah, right now there's the signature, right? So what is, yeah, it could be there's some consolidation there because really naturally what's happening is something similar, right? But there is more like external facing consequences of expanding the cardinality of aggregators versus just having this mechanism which kind of stays internal, right, to the topology, because you don't require re-architecting anything here. It's just a pre-step that happens. So
yeah, but I think you're going to need literally thousands of keys on a node for this to be effective, because you're doing one channel from 32 slots. So like if you're still going to have 64 aggregations, the chances of having, I don't know how many people are running more than 1,000 keys on a node, but like it seems like this is a very marginal thing unless you're getting all of your nodes, like a large operator, to send all of your validations to a single point.
Yeah, the counterpoint there is that you could technically, like, the reason that you don't have that packing efficiency is because you have 64 subnets. So if you actually bring in the consolidation together with this, so that you say, for example, consolidate to 16 subnets, right? So a factor of 4. You would then like be having more packing efficiency, right? So it's kind of like, it goes both ways. That's why I was a little bit hesitant of detaching the consolidation part of this EIP, which was kind of like, as a placeholder there. But yeah, I totally see your point, and there is definitely another like part of the design space that we could study here before like going one way or another. Yeah.
Last comment from Potus, and then we have to close up. Okay. The only other thing I wanted to mention today was, thank you for presenting. Potus, do you still want to go?
Yeah, I just want to mention quickly that the numbers on aggregators should be run, because if we are talking about also like decreasing the number of committees, then you can just have more aggregators per committee without enlarging that much number of aggregators and increasing the chances of one of these large operators having one of the aggregators. So if we are using the argument that this is going to allow us to have less committees, then we should also use that argument to compare with enlarging the number of aggregators.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is a whole like study that merits, its own analysis. The other point that I want to make sure that I don't downsell, even though I haven't like done a lot of solution design for this, so maybe like I'm kind of like going in with a little bit of caution here, is I do think that this particular instantiation is a useful primitive for privacy, as I mentioned. in the sense that any attester can like there could be services emerging that that allow attesters to channel their attestations through them. But it's also possible that we might be able to like achieve that with the aggregator, like site, like the other aggregator based solution.
Yeah. Thank you guys for the discussion. We're over time right now. Thank you, Rahul, for the presentation. One thing I did want to mention is there's a ETH Magicians poll on Glamsterdam mascot. So please go vote there for your favorite emoji. That should be it for today. Thanks everyone for coming and for trying out the different time zone.
See you guys.
Thank you, folks.